I'm with Chris MacRae, who's standing for Director of Events and Services. You say in your manifesto that you want to bring in an act a similar size to Pink Floyd. Do you think that's achievable?
I do think it's achievable. I think basically the thinking behind that was back in 1973 when Venue 1 first opened, it was actually Pink Floyd that were the opening act to bring in the brand new venue. And the way I see it, you know, the Union is, we're getting our first ever nightclub in St Andrews here. It's unbelievable. So we need something huge to kick that off. And I know the Union is, you know, it's spent a lot of its budget lately. But one of the main things I want to do is I want to kick off Freshers with a big bang, because it's such an important year. It is a big transitional year for the Union, and if this new nightclub doesn't get off to a good start, then it may never. So, you know, I want Freshers Week to be huge. Really.
But it's something the size of Pink Floyd.
I mean, I'm talking something of the, you know, the modern day equivalent. So you've got your likes of...
What, Oasis reforming? Or?
I mean, it depends what sort of thing I could bring back Oasis. I mean, I was more kind of thinking down the lines of the sort of star that's becoming really big right now. So like you've got like the likes of Kygo, who's, you know, huge right now and is massive in St Andrews as well. People seem to really take into his style of music. And I think that's a sort of act that's achievable for our Union. Obviously, another thing that I'd like to do, which is something that other DoES have tried to do in the past, is collaborate with other unions. And I know, having spoken to Leon, that he has managed to set up a link with DoES, Dundee Union. But it's that's come too late in the day for him to actually do anything about it. So I want to make the most of that, because our Freshers Week this year runs in the exact same week as DoES does as well. So if there's a sort of thing where you could get a fairly large act to go to Dundee Union, play maybe a fairly large gig, come to St Andrews, open up our venue on maybe the same night or the night after, it cuts travel costs, and it's much easier for budgeting for both parties. So I do think it's possible.
So moving on to your experience, you've been bar staff and you've been a DJ, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But you've never sat on the SRC, the SSC. Do you really think you've got experience of kind of the Union and its machinery to be DoES?
DoES, yeah. No, absolutely. I do think so. I mean, I know this place like the back of my hand. I've spent basically 2 years living in this building. A lot of what I've done through, you know, I've seen through working at the bar, I've seen the Union at its worst, at its very best. I know exactly what works. I know what doesn't. You know, there's been completely dead nights when, you know, our boss at the Union has brought in loads of staff because he thought it was going to be a huge night, and it just didn't work out for what, you know, some reason or another. And being on that side, and also hearing opinions from, you know, people coming in, you know, maybe drunk people coming in and all that, it's been quite frustrating for me, having all these ideas that I know that I want to implement, and not having the means to do it. So now I think this is my opportunity to really go ahead and you know, stamp my mark on the Union, because I think I do know what would work here. I think the sort of person I am, I can adapt to the role really well, because I'm a very personable person. Like, the DoES is, at the end of the day, a very sociable role. A lot of what you would have to do, say I were to get the position, would be calling up agents, calling up acts, and trying to get them, convince them to come to the Union. And I think that's something that I would be able to do pretty well.
But do you also think that you could actually run the venues, rather than just being a barman or a DJ, that you could be in charge of running these venues? Oh,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, none of us have been DoES. You know, there's no one rerunning for it. Leon's not going for it again. It's no amount of experience of running a team or anything like that can actually set you up for what this job is. And one thing that I've heard said several times before is that this job is almost like too much for one person to do. But at the end of the day, whoever does get the position is going to just have to be trained up to do their very best at that job. So you can have someone who's perhaps got a lot of experience, and at managing a team. I mean, I have I've been in committees before. I've captained sports teams and things before. I have done things like that, but I don't think that side of it is as relevant as the personable qualities of being able to adapt to that role. I think some people perhaps might have a lot of experience, but relating that experience to the actual job is very different, because none of us have done this before, and it's a very specific, it's quite a niche thing to do. So
you talked a lot about Leon. He had the Sellout Freshers Week, and that was kind of based on variety. He had comedy, a cappella, all these things. Your manifesto seems quite music focused. Do you think that's kind of going back on things, going back to a music focus?
Not at all. I mean, I focus my manifesto on music because that is my passion. Like, I love music, and I feel like I know a lot about it. As a DJ and things like that. I've planned and organised my own DJ events here in St Andrews, in Dundee, in Edinburgh. So, I mean, obviously, from my experience, my main focus is trying to use my knowledge of music to make the music scene here better in St Andrews. But of course, I think it's really important that we have a wide variety of acts. Like, one thing I've done before is I worked at the Edinburgh Festival, where I worked with USA, and I was working in a VIP bar, working with all the acts there, so I actually got to know a lot of the Edinburgh Festival acts really well. And I think the fact that our Freshers Week comes just a week after the festival ends is a great time to get some of the brilliant acts in from there into our Freshers Week. I think I saw some wonderful improvised comedy acts, which I tried to get all my friends and things to go to, and they all loved it. And I would do anything I can to try and bring them here. So I think Freshers Week has to be very varied. It has to incorporate everything. But where I think I'll thrive will be the music side of things. Yeah.
So moving kind of on in your manifesto, you talk about having daytime events, getting people in during the daytime. Yeah. Isn't that what societies already do? Isn't that the whole point of societies?
Well, my job as DoES would be to facilitate what the societies want. So I think one of the main things I want to do is be that port of call for them to be able to come to me if there is anything they want on. But also there are, for example, at Dundee Union again, they do put on a lot, like the bar themselves put on a lot of their own events, just to try and get people in the bar at times when they otherwise wouldn't be. Like, for example, they put on twice a week. There's a buffet they put on. They're like on Tuesday they have an Italian buffet, Thursday's an Indian buffet, and that's in the evenings. And people love it. Like, they love it there. And I think that's something that would go down a treat in St Andrews. We've got a very eclectic mix of people here, and I find the union can be quite dull during the day. There's not really much going on. So I want to try and organise as much as I possibly can, and whether that means it's something that I'm taking on myself and trying to organise a daytime activity, for example, like I was looking at perhaps getting live jazz bands. I was looking at jam sessions. I mean, the coffee house sessions that Leon's brought in has been fantastic. But again, through working at the bar, I've seen, for example, like the Folk Music Society. They do rehearsals in Sandy's bar sometimes, and I'm standing there at the bar by myself, watching them, thinking, "This is amazing! Like, people would want to hear this." And no one.
So isn't that a problem with advertising, though? That are already happening, these daytime music events, but no one's going.
But what I'm saying is that isn't in itself. It isn't an event. That was just them doing their own thing. What I want to do is let them know that I would be there to facilitate. If they wanted to do a public jam session, for example, in the main bar of the union, that's something that I'd be willing to incorporate. So a big part of what I want to do is, make sure all the societies know that the union is available for them. For example, Music is Love. They do their open mic nights. A couple of years ago, they were doing a lot of their open mic nights in, just people's flats, people's houses, or whatever. Nowadays, they've got a regular slot, and that's something that's benefited both parties. For the union, it brings people in the door. For them, people are watching them do what they love. So I think Leon did a very good job in facilitating that, and I want to be able to do it again. I want to continue on and just make the union available for as many people as possible.
Something that always appears in DoES candidates' manifestos is cheap drinks. This is always something that appears. Of course, yeah. But is it something realistic that you can bring in, that you can make drinks cheaper or maintain the prices? Is this really going to happen?
So I'm trying to take a slightly different approach to perhaps some of the past DoESs. year after year it's promised, I'll keep, drinks prices will be cheap, or maybe even cheaper, some of them have promised. Quite frankly, that's not something that's going to be feasible. I'll fight to keep them as low as possible. I mean, I know the bar manager here obviously very well, got a strong working and personal relationship with him. Sandy and Tony as well, the commercial manager. And I've actually, in my time working here, because I was thinking about running for this position, I've run past a lot of the ideas that I have to try and get around the inevitable inflation that we're going to have. For example, one thing I was thinking was doing weekly drinks deals, rather than just a blanket, all drinks are going to be cheaper at the Union, which is just not going to happen. I'd like to, for example, a drink of the week, vodka, Coke, half price this week. It's a different way around making drinks prices cheaper. Another thing I was looking at was the sort of skint style thing that a lot of unions do, where licensing laws mean it would have to be a 72-hour drinks reduction in prices. So for some certain days of the week, prices would be a lot lower, and that would bring people into the union on a so-called quieter night of the week. Again, that's something that I've run past the managers here, because I don't want to try and promise anything that I can't actually do. So I've made sure that everything in my manifesto is feasible, first of all. But I think there are ways around the drinks thing, basically. It's like something I was thinking I want to do, it's in my manifesto, is having hall nights and postgrad nights, which is basically, I mean, for example, for postgrads, there's a lot here for undergrad students, and so that's perfect. I want to keep it as it is, but I think a lot of the postgrads feel like they're not really represented in nightlife here very well. So one way I wanted to get around that was to have perhaps like a bi-weekly postgrad night where there's a two-tier drink system, and that allows them, say the postgrad society would have a stamp or something like that. They stamp everyone in the society. If they come to the union, they get cheaper drinks that day. Same would go for maybe halls. People you could group together. DRA, Uni Hall, and ABH. They have their night of the week. If they all come in, if the social reps can get as many people in the door as possible, then they get cheaper drinks.
But this would be predicated on them getting people in the door. Is this?
No. So it wouldn't be something that if you can get a certain amount of people in, it would be an incentive for them to get as many people in the door as possible. Because when you're in halls, you kind of want to get to know people. They do a lot. Like Uni Hall did their vodka bar and everything like that. But then what do they do after that? They don't have anything. So I want to give them an incentive to come to the union, but I think would be pretty beneficial for the place. So.
Well, Chris MacRae, thank you very much for the interview.
Enjoyed
Good luck with
it.
the campaign.
Thank you very much.